Well, folks, welcome back to Festival Focus, a very special Aintree edition, and no finer man for the role in joining me to assess the 3 days of Aintree than a man who hasn't just been there, seen it, done it, and got the T-shirt. He's been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt, and won the Grand National. The 9th of April 2016, 33-1, Rule the World, won the Grand National, trained by Mouse Morris, and ridden by this man, David Mullins. Welcome back, David. A very special day in your professional career, I guess. When you look back, what's your abiding memory of that day? What's the one thing that sticks in a magical afternoon in the northwest of England?
Oh, sure, it was an amazing day, but I was only 19. You don't know what to appreciate it at the time. I was looking at Paul Townend winning the Irish Grand National on Easter Monday in Ferryhouse, and I was thinking, God, if I was my age now winning it, I definitely remember a lot more, definitely pick out certain things, or it'd mean a lot more. I found the national to me was a bit of a stepping stone, but it was something I'll never forget, and something that nobody ever forgets you for. So obviously it's amazing, but I was very young, and as I said, if it was now, I'd take it a different way.
Well, it is nonetheless an extraordinary achievement and a hallowed one at that. Just tell me about Paul Townend for a second, because I saw you uploaded some footage onto social media from the grandstand at Ferryhouse on Monday just gone, of him surging to the front on I Am Maximus. Now, to the layman, it's all very well watching on the television in the stands, but explain to me from a jockey's eye perspective why that was hailed as a special ride. What did he do so brilliantly and differently? I know it helps when you win, of course, but it was lauded as a special ride. What was it about Townend's performance on I Am Maximus? Was it the timing, the delivery, the strength, the nuance, the positioning during the race? What was it that stood out?
What stood out for me was the fact he actually rode the horse. I thought there could be a few better rides in it for him. With his jumping, I watched a replay of him, I think maybe on Saturday or Sunday night, of him going around Cheltenham, and Danny rode him, and he actually hit the third last fence with his head first. I didn't think this horse would get around possibly over Ferryhouse fences, which can be a lot stiffer and there's a lot more jumping. But Paul Townend, I don't know. I think a lot of jockeys would have pulled him up with a few of the mistakes he made, or would have let him miss another one or two and possibly just got out of there. That's there's no way you could say going out on the second circuit that this horse had a chance the way he was jumping. I don't know. It's testament to Willie Mullins and Paul Townend. I don't know how they got this horse to win, because the only fence he really jumped were the last two, and Paul then lifted him over the line, and he's actually won going away in the end. So it was a massive performance out of Paul, a massive performance out of the horse, and for Willie to get him in that sort of form, to keep him going, making those mistakes. It's Paul Townend. Anyway, I'm taking my cap off to him.
Yeah, you don't get to be where Paul Townend is by mistake. And it seems only 10 minutes ago since Galway 2008, the up-and-coming Paul Townend first started to make a name for himself. Look where he is now. And where he will be in a few hours' time is in the northwest of England at Aintree, where they kick off on Thursday. Well, they front-loaded the card because the first 4 races, well, we've got this amazing spree of Grade 1. So let's get stuck into those, because it's really a fantastic start to the 3-day meeting. The 145, the Manifesto Novices Chase on Thursday. Well, this will have the purists purring, surely, because on paper, for Ireland, Banbridge and Sanois up against, for England, Stage Star. Usual spin on this, David. If you were turning up in Aintree with your boots and your saddle, which one of those, maybe something else, would you want to be on board?
Listen, Stage Star's form is obviously very good. He took the skull of appreciating Mighty Potter at Cheltenham, but I have a funny feeling possibly Paul Townend and Davy Russell rode the race a bit off each other, and Appreciate It didn't actually run that well in Ferryhouse the other day. He made a few mistakes, and possibly that's why Paul rode him that way. Mighty Potter, I thought, got a very strange ride in Cheltenham also, and I think Stage Star just got a freebie and won for that reason. So for me, I've been going with the horse that missed Cheltenham again, Banbridge. He finished second behind El Fabiolo. having not jumped as well over 2 mile at Christmas. I think the extra 3 furlongs will help around the Aintree, and it's a small enough field too. So I think Banbridge is probably the one. St. Roy is in there also. He ran well in Cheltenham, but I just don't think. I think he's got his grade 1, and I think he was fortunate enough to get it at Christmas. I don't think he'll be winning another.
Well, we did see a theme, Fairy House, of horses who competed at Cheltenham, maybe not backing up that quickly, and it being a very thorough examination of their ability to turn out at a high level twice in a short space of weeks. With that in mind, we go on to the 220, the anniversary 4-year-old Juvenile hurdle, the second of those grade 1s. This, frankly, is complex. There's several in there with chances. Who do you like?
Well, as you were saying, with the backup run from Cheltenham, it didn't work in Fairy House, and I have a funny feeling for this race, especially. It probably won't work either for the filly, Zenta, 4-year-old filly favourite. She ran a big race in Cheltenham. She probably is the best horse in the race, but it's going to be tough. We've seen Blood Destiny bomb out. Gust of Wind was also third, I think, or fourth maybe. Sorry, and he bombed out as well a bit. So for me, I'd have to go with something possibly that missed Cheltenham and at a bigger price. We were talking about Bo Zenit earlier on in the season. I wasn't a fan of the way he went to the line in Sandown, and it's still in the back of my head. I know he's been very impressive twice since, but he was 1-3 or something the last day, and his form, he had to win like that to have a chance here. Not a massive fan of the horse. I think it's going to be a shock winner, and if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to pick my father's horse, Right So Tom. I know he ran in Cheltenham, but he got a ride to kind of pick up the pieces, and that's what happened. It was only his second run. I think sixth is a big run, and I don't think it's going to leave too much mark on him the way he was ridden in Cheltenham.
Intriguing, big price outsider. 255, the Bowl. This is a race that my own family got fond memories of, winning it with Mac George way back in 1999. I think it's fair to say that on paper, the 2023 renewal is a rather warmer event, because look at this, Shishkin, Brave Man's Game, who Paul Nicholls has been raving about in the run-up to the race, A Plus Tard, the Enigma, and even, of course, Ahoy Senor with the eye-catching booking of a certain Brian Hughes. What to make of this, the Bowl?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Brave Man's Game, what a race he ran in Cheltenham, and you'd have to fancy him on that run, but my God, he got a very hard race. He'd done everything. He put his heart on the line, and it's hard to see him backing it up in Aintree, especially after getting well beaten there last year as well. I'm not sure there was any excuse for that horse last year in there. Then you're taking on with Shishkin, who also ran a big race in Cheltenham, but I'm just not sure about his attitude. Them fences come up quick down the back in Aintree. I think he might get lost. What else have we got? A Plutard. I thought Richard Blackmore possibly should have kept him going in Cheltenham even after nearly getting brought down by a high senior. Noble Yates finished fourth, and when Richard Blackmore was pulling up, Noble Yates was coming from about 3 or 4 lengths behind him, and he managed to get fourth. So I think on that run, I think that's I don't think he's far off Brave Man's Game, but obviously he didn't get a race in Cheltenham, so I'm going to stick with a Plutard for that.
Intriguing. 330. What can we say? Is this just a lap of honour once again for the mighty, the frankly incredible Constitution Hill? It'll take a miracle, won't it, to get him beat?
Yeah, I hope he wins, because if he doesn't win, it's going to be something like a fall or something that gets him beat, or an injury or something not in the books anyway for what's supposed to happen. This is a 1-horse race.
Moving swiftly on to Friday, another 4 grade 1s, but the race I really want to pin you down on at 4:05 is the Topham 2 miles 5 over the famous big fences. So it's 1 mile 5.5 furlongs shorter than the Grand National. What qualities do you need for this shorter test over the big fences? I know you have got some experience of the race, but who would you see assessing this year's candidates might be the one to steer in with in the Topham?
Well, Willie has won it, I think, possibly 2 out of the last 3 years with Cadmium, and Patrick won it on Live, Love, Laugh, who also ran the National. They're very good jumpers. They're very slick out in front. You'd wonder would Borough Saint or Hot on Color do the same? The horses with grade 1 potential, or sorry, were grade 1 performers. You'd wonder, could they just be the grade 1 horses again in handicaps? I think I'd be sticking with Willie Mullins again for this race. He's bringing something to the table with those horses that possibly you don't often get in a Topham, where you just kind of get horses that have reached your level. And maybe these have as well, but I think they're going to be in a different gear towards the rest of them.
And moving swiftly on, if that's the case, and it'll be Willie Mullins into Topham, who will it be on Saturday at 5:15? The most famous horse race, a race that you won 7 years ago on Rule the World, as we mentioned. It is, of course, the Grand National. Nowadays, 4 miles, 2.5 furlongs. Let me tee it up this way, David, because to my eyes anyway, we've noted on this call, we noted on certainly Monday at Fairy House, are we too easily seduced by recent form, particularly horses who had tough races at Cheltenham? Don't you want a fresh horse? And the reason I say this, and I'll give you a little bit of working, if you will, Corach Rambler is likely to be in and around favourite when we actually tick around to race time. Had a very hard race coming to win in such gutsy fashion in the Ultima at Cheltenham on the first day. Noble Yates, you mentioned him staying on from another parish to be fourth in the Gold Cup. Delta Work had to lay it all down to get the better of Galvin in that thriller in the cross country. These are all fine animals. And of course, Noble Yates has been there and done it just like you have. Corach Rambler comes from a stable who won it 6 years ago with One for Earth. Delta Work, we know all about him. What a wonderful campaigner. But these are horses who've been through the mill at Cheltenham. Do you not want something a little bit fresher with a bit more zest in those legs, who hasn't been tearing it up at Cheltenham? Or am I completely barking up the wrong tree and you'd want to be on one of those? Who will it be this year?
Yeah, it's a tough one again. There's 10 or 12 there that I could pick out that I wouldn't mind riding in it, that's for sure. Corach Rambler, I actually think the reason he's won in Cheltenham the last 2 years is the ride he's got. I don't think he's been that well in or anything like that. I thought Derek Fox was giving him masterclass rides. He's on him again for the national. There's no reason to say he won't do it again. He's £10 well in on his mark. But do I think he has that £10 up his sleeve? I don't think so. And the same for Noble Yates, Delta Work, any second now, Galvin. I think they're horses that listen, they could run great races and finish in the top 5. But I think at this day and age, you need a horse kind of like Noble Yates last year, who wasn't exposed. And that's to me, the top few in the betting all look to me like they are exposed. I'd be going well down the field. If I was to have a bet, you'd be taking your chance possibly on Velvet Elvis or one of these. Another horse, he went to Cheltenham. He finished 3rd in the Kimmuir. Possibly not the strongest race at the festival, but he showed another glimpse of his past self, of having the ability. There still could be plenty in the tank with this horse, and I think he's getting more sweeter every day he runs, Mr. Incredible. If he jumps off, he won't stop. He stays all day.
So Velvet Elvis, Mr. Incredible. Any more names for the short list, or will it be one of that duo?
I think well, for me, they're my short list, but I think one of the older horses will finish in the first 3 or 4, but you can't say which one. There's not much left up their sleeves at their age.
Well, to complete the Lee Mullins trifecta, the tricast, call it what you will, Velvet Elvis, Mr. Incredible, and Sam Thomas's Our Power, who's 4 from 8 over fences, still only a relatively young horse, and looks like he's going to have the assistance of Sam Swiston Davis, one of the fittest men in the weighing room doing the driving. So that's 3 names to look out for, all at each way prices. 2 of them, the first 2 names, Velvet Elvis and Mr. Incredible, potential Grand National winners from a Grand National winner. Bring on Aintree. That's all from myself and David. We will be back again in a few days' time to have a look at the 5 magical days of Punchestown. But for now, enjoy Aintree.